everyone. We're starting, and we are recording this webinar, and we'll post that to the SRDC site. Is that correct, Rachel? Oh, that is a yes. My name is Suzette Agins, and I'm with USDA Rural Development. Thank you for putting your initials in. This is how we're going to be taking our roll call. I want to introduce Dave Pierce, who's one of our national set coordinators.
Hi, everybody.
Hello, good morning.
With the Center for Rural Development.
Good afternoon.
And Rachel from the Southern Rural Development Center.
Hello.
And then we also have other key partners on the team. Probably some of the other, I can't tell, but some of the other regional rural developments out in the west, east, and then the north central. And then we have our curriculum design team. I see some of them are on the webinar, and all of these folks and a bunch of others are key, instrumental in making that happen, and to that including the evaluation and so on. And with that, I'd like to turn that over to Martha Walker out of Virginia. She can talk about her experience in one of the phases, and they had two set regions. So with that.
Hey, Suzette. Thank you very much, everybody. I'm Martha Walker. I'm with Virginia Tech, Virginia Cooperative Extension. And in 2012, Virginia accepted the opportunity to apply and be accepted as one of the state sites for SET. We were part of SET 3. So 2012, we began to launch this. When we sent out the request for proposals, there were 4 state organizations, well, 4 agencies that came together. Of course, USDA Rural Development, the Virginia Department of Housing and Community Development, Virginia Tourism Corporation, and, of course, Virginia Cooperative Extension through Virginia Tech. Those 4 agencies built the team that began to work with these communities. When we released the RFP, we ended up accepting 2 regions. And you see on the slide the 2 regions that are there. One was in the southeastern part of the state, and one was in the more central area of the state. These 2 regions were composed of actually 10 counties and 1 city. Now, as you would imagine, following the SET principles and the SET training materials, they came together, and their goals all focused on creation and expansion. One of the regions, you might hear a little bit more about that later on, but has been very successful in leveraging resources, pulling together the right kinds of partnerships, and to making things happen, even to where the communities are working together as small groups, small entities. But then, and you also have the second region that is still continuing to build a very good plan and to work together as a full region. So we're very pleased with what the areas in Virginia have done. Some room for improvement, no doubt. But basically, in the end, there were some lessons that I think Virginia learned that are probably applicable to other areas as well. We learned that implementation, even though there's a great plan that's developed, that implementation really requires a champion and a staff of some sort to deal with the coordination. One of our regions, I'm going to quote from what their comments were. They said, the planning district served as the catalyst. It found a home. We were all short-staffed and underfunded, but no one else had the capacity to get the state agency engaged the way the PDC does. And I appreciated that, because that particular PDC really stepped up to the plate and really provided the technical assistance in many ways for staffing and for coordination of their plan. The other thing that we learned is that it requires a lot of communication, and I think those of you would agree with me that ongoing communication is the secret to keeping people interested and keeping people working. It requires engagement, the engagement of multiple groups and people, where we saw it more from one large generic group into small groups with specific tasks. And those tasks then, they were held accountable. and that accountability led to them actually getting some things done. The other lesson that we learned was that the networks between state and federal agencies and the local community really do open up doors to create funding opportunities and transition those goals that are set locally into something that can actually be accomplished. And then the last two pieces of lessons that we learned was around the local networks, that those networks are truly the influencing factor for setting the priorities, and that finding sources of funding becomes the major ingredient to success. So Virginia was very pleased with what happened with SET in the round 3. And the two organizations, or the two regions, I think, are moving forward and give us some good return on that investment. So we were very pleased to be part of it. So Suzette, thank you for the opportunity to share that little bit of Virginia's story.
Thank you. And this is Bo. Let me go ahead and take over from Martha. No, I think Basil's on too, right? Is that correct?
No, he could not make it.
Okay, not make it. Okay. Do you want me to move on then?
Yes, please.
Okay. I don't have whoever's got the slide can change it for me. I don't know. I don't have a list of how many you are on the phone that have been introduced to Stronger Economies Together in the past, but if you haven't, you probably are not aware how pervasive this program has become across the country. If you know about SET, this could also still be a valuable reintroduction to how many states and regions we've been working with. SET began in 2010, when now we've gone through 4 phases. 2010 was the first phase, 2011 was the second phase, 12 was the third phase, and 2013 was the fourth phase. And we've, in that time period, have essentially spread SET through almost 30 states. We're close to 30 states currently, 55-plus regions. So we're very, very pleased by the way SET has been built up over the years. And all of us who've been part of the SET program from the very onset will state that the quality of the programming has gotten better over time. And SET 4 is probably has the strongest set of metrics and activities relative to what happened before that. So for those of you who are on the call who were part of our earlier phases of SET, all we can say is thank you for letting us build on your successes and what the challenges you felt needed to be addressed in subsequent SET phases. So we really are proud by the different states who have now been part of the Strong Economies Together. Let me move on and then to talk a little bit about what is this whole thing called SET? What is its major purpose? First of all, we are primarily trying to mobilize rural communities and counties with some connection in part to a larger, maybe urban area, but largely we're trying to get communities and counties who are part of rural areas to come together and to think as a regional team in the hopes that they could mobilize and create a high-quality regional economic development plan, a blueprint for the future that really helps them understand where we want to go together. And that And more importantly, it's not creating something that's not there. It's really looking at what are our current emerging economic assets that exist in our region, and how can we build a plan that takes full advantage of that and really enhances those particular assets or builds on those assets. I know you may hear, well, is there money associated with this? The answer is no with regard to a region, but we have many examples, not the least being our colleagues who at Virginia who just spoke, about the fact that this regional plan becomes a mechanism you use to help better access resources that can help you support your regional team. Because no matter what agency, organization, philanthropy that you go to, they will want to know what is your plan. And your plan here really positions you to be able to access some of those important resources that help make that plan a reality. So what does SET provide to regional teams? Tell you that in a second as soon as the slide changes. There it is. Okay. First of all, coaching. Many of you, we can use the baseball, football, basketball, whatever analogy you want to use for coaching, you know that a coach provides the instruction, the guidance, the nurturing, sometimes challenging us. A coach really provides that kind of support system needed to help the regional team really function effectively. SET provides up to 120 hours of on-site coaching, and again, support to the team in building a solid regional plan. And that coaching is typically provided by our the state team that's come together to help support these regions. It could be part of our land-grant university extension colleagues, USDA rural development state office officials, and others who are, but mostly RD and extension. But again, coaches, the nurturing, the support system. The second big thing is data and analytics. One thing we put at your fingertips of the regional teams is high-quality data, some of the best data you can find available that really helps the team recognize, again, what its strengths are, what some of its opportunities are, and we provide that in a way that is very, very user-friendly. For those of you who've been part of SET in the past, we've created a number of different data products. Well, I'm pleased to say that we are, as a national team, we've reviewed all this, and we will be providing an even more expanded set of data resources as part of Phase 5 that will be very, very valuable to the regional team as they try to better decipher what are some of the attributes of their region that might be important to consider as they look at their regional economic strengths. The third thing is technical assistance. Again, accessing entities and individuals and organizations who may have specialized expertise that is needed related to your economic activities. If, for example, you are doing something on advanced manufacturing and you need specialized help through our network of rural development and land grant system and other key partners, we hope to be able to provide that kind of technical assistance to you, and including drilling down and providing even more in-depth data that may be needed on whatever particular cluster the regional team would like to hone in on. And fourth is this, as you know, whenever we work with businesses or entrepreneurs, one of the important elements of success is they having a network of people, of peers, with whom they can talk to, communicate with, seek advice on, share ideas, and we want to continue to nurture that kind of networking among peers. So we have monthly calls that engage our regional team members in conversation about their particular efforts, how they might learn from others across the country who are part of the Phase 5 SET program. And then we also provide timely webinars on topics relevant to the SET program that add value to what the current activities are of the team. And finally, we have multi-state meetings. We will be, for the first time, providing an avenue for SET teams to come in a meeting and really, again, learn new skills, learn new content, but also a forum for conversation and interaction among regional teams and states that have been involved in the SET program. So again, learn from one another as well as from the expertise that may be there with the more specialized areas of concentration. So that's what I want to share with you, and we'll obviously be glad to take Q&As at the end if you have any questions about what I just said. So let me turn it over to, I believe it goes over to Dave now.
Hi, everybody. This is Dave Sears. I'm with RD National Office. As you've already heard, those of you who participated in earlier phases of SET, one of the hallmarks of SET is continuous improvement. So every year we've gotten feedback in a variety of different ways from those that have participated in SET, both the state coaching teams and those people who are leading the regional teams. And we've taken very seriously the feedback, and SET has been modified every single year. This year is no different. So when the states come together for Phase 5, it'll be a new and somewhat different and improved SET that is going to be available for Phase 5. All of you, I assume you have the screen up and you know how to read, so I'm not going to read these various boxes here. But when we say streamlined, one thing is that you see 6 boxes there. If you had been in Phase 1, there were 9 boxes, each box representing a session. And then for, I think, Phases 2, 3, and 4, there were 8 boxes. So one of the pieces of feedback that we got over the last few months is speed it up, condense it, focus more, and that's part of what we're doing. Another piece of feedback that we got was reduce the amount of lecture-style presentation when people come together. When you have 25 people on the regional team, and sometimes some of them have to travel a number of hours to get to the site, let's not spend time sitting there in our seats listening. Let's spend our time rolling up our sleeves and working together as a team. And so we have a number of different avenues that are going to enable us to make that happen, including some of the content will be presented as homework, sometimes via short videos that people will watch at their leisure between the face-to-face meetings. So again, we're listening, we're improving, and we're really excited about the way that we're going to be able to roll out Phase 5. So, roles and responsibilities. That's for those of you here on the phone, from RD, from Extension, and from other institutions that may be interested in being part of the state team. What's your job? Very briefly, the next couple, if you to apply and you're accepted, spend a couple of months phase, which is get the word out, and that include sure that around the state know about the. Okay, folks. So roles and responsibilities. This means roles and responsibilities for the members of your state team, and that would include the RD folks, the Extension folks, and the folks from other institutions who will join your state team. We got 3 bullets here, and let me just go over each of them very quickly. Once your state has been selected as one of the states to participate in Phase 5 of SET, and later on you'll see that will be toward the end of February that'll happen. I think you'll see that in about 5 minutes. When that happens, then your job is to make sure that the regions in your state know about it, and there are a variety of different ways that you can do that, and distribute the applications. And then when the applications come in, it's your job to review those applications and make recommendations to the national team, national SET team, in terms of which regions you would recommend that we go forward with. Once that's happened and your regions have been selected, then your job is to coach, and you've heard a lot of conversation about coaching and what that is, and that's generally going to take in the 6 or 7 month time period. Bo indicated some of the key aspects of coaching. You're also going to let us know in terms of any specific data needs at the national level. As Bo indicated, we have a basic package that everybody will get, but then in your particular region there may be some specific needs, and we will do our best to try to respond to those. And you want to make sure that the regional team actually develops a plan, and we're looking for a plan that we call a high-quality plan. That's not sufficient, so go on to the third bullet, the final bullet on this slide. Implementation is key. You have a wonderful plan, your region has a wonderful plan, they've really built a solid team, and nothing happens. That's a real disappointment. It's a real opportunity lost. So your job is to help that team keep going and begin to implement the plan. That's very important. You'll be providing technical assistance. You'll help them identify additional resources, and those resources can be technical resources and they can be financial resources. And with that, I think we're turning it over to...
No, go ahead.
Oh, is this me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so again, everybody here can read, so I'm not going to read through this, but you'll see key dates. End of January, your applications are due. Very important, has to be totally agreed to by the state RD director and by the extension director. Both have to sign off. We don't want any applications where we have one enthusiastic partner and we have one that really isn't all that interested. Both have to be enthusiastic partners for this to work. Toward the end of February, we will be able to announce which states have been selected, and then you can read on from there. We're going to have in mid-July a Train the Coaches workshop. This is generally a 2.5-day workshop in some central location, central to the states selected, and it's a real roll up your sleeves and figure out how to do this workshop. So with that, I now turn it over to Rachel.
All right, you want to flip to the next slide, please? So we just want to talk for a second about where SET is a great fit and where maybe it isn't as good a fit, so that you can begin to think through this. Obviously, there's some groups that make sense to target. If you've got some groups that are already trying to work together or beginning to think about working together, we are looking for at least 3 counties. But we've also learned from the past that it is possible to get too large of a geographical area where it's just not very feasible to work together. So as you begin talking to regions and visiting with people that may want to apply, help them kind of think through that. If your space is really, really large and people can't drive in and spend a half a day together once a month or so, then the chances are that might be just too large of a region to be very feasible. Some of the other things we've learned is that SET is great for groups that are just beginning to plan or just beginning to come together. But if groups have already recently done plans and they've already got something in place, this might not be the best tool for them because this is designed to be for planning and for getting a plan started. So consider where regions are and let them kind of think through that. We have seen some economic development districts that have worked well with SETs as they need to, for instance, update their SEDs. It's a good way to get that done. So there are lots of ways that this can be dovetailed into existing projects, existing groups. But we would want to make sure that there is a local buy-in. We've also learned that groups that are kind of appointed from the top somewhere don't seem to do quite as well as groups that really have that local buy-in, so that's important. Of course, broad representation, anytime you're talking about bringing together an entire region, you want to make sure that you've got economic developments there, you've got education there, you have the other aspects of community, you've got the government officials, you have businesses there, industries there, all of those pieces that bring together to make up a region need to be at the table in the planning. We do find that really broad representation helps to make for a very good plan. And this last bullet is important because we are looking to work in predominantly rural areas. So 51% rural, either by population or by geography. If you need some help in looking at that and thinking through that, then we've got some resources that we can make available to you to help your regions figure out how they fit in that definition. There are some resources that we also will have available to do this outreach. For instance, we've got a little 2-page, a front and back overview page that is posted on the SET website that is in the chat box, and I think we also have it at the end of this presentation. We'll have a short video up by around the first of the year that you can share. We'll have a short intro PowerPoint that is similar to this one, but it's targeted more for regions. So as you go out and you start broadcasting this opportunity to your regions, assuming you've been accepted as a state, then you'll have some resources at your fingertips that you can use to help promote this work. So let's move on then and talk a little bit about the funding for SET. As you can see there on the slide, we have, if you've been a part of previous versions of SET, you'll see that we are raising the funding level for SET regions this year to $26,400 per region, and the state can do up to 2 regions. We are looking at this level, and we raised it on purpose because there is quite an investment that we are hoping will happen after the planning process, and that the coaches will stay very engaged to help groups actually begin implementation. Even though we've seen a lot of success towards getting great plans together over the past 4 years as we've been doing this process, we still find that some groups struggle with that step between we finish planning, how do we really get this thing rolling? And so we are wanting the SET coaches to invest some extra time on that end. But as Dave mentioned earlier, the planning process is shorter, so it's not a lot more investment of time, but it is a shifting in the time. So this is there to support the extension educators that are going to be playing a key role in the SET process. It can be used for salary support, travel expenses, and all of the supplies that may come along with SET, which of course might be printing, it might be flip charts and paper and all of those things that it takes to make a planning process like this successful. So it goes through the extension service, and so that those resources are there just to cover the expenses of this process. So I think with that, we'll stop and see where there are questions. And if you want, you could type your question into the chat box, or we can try to possibly let you raise your hands, and we can watch for those so that we don't end up talking over each other. But would love to hear your questions.
Rachel, we have one question that came in on the chat. In the past, the state printed the materials. Is that still correct? If so, let's see. An estimate on the volume of materials to print, so will that be available? Will there be an estimate of how much printing needs to occur? How many pages, that kind of thing, per person?
With the new material, it's going to be reduced, but we could probably put some general numbers around that pretty quickly. I don't know them off the top of my head because some of those materials are still being finalized, but we can probably get a good estimate together.
Great, thank you. Anyone on the phone want to ask a question, and then I'll go to the chat box.
This is Bo. Let me make a comment, if you don't mind. I think for those of you who are on the call, the one thing that you may get some pushback on is groups that or economic development districts or other regional entities that may already exist and maybe think this could be either duplication of effort, or they feel that you're kind of moving into their turf. This has happened in the past. I think one point we really want to make, and I think increasingly the economic development districts, for example, I know Martha talked about Virginia. The Northern Neck was completely done in tandem or collaboration with the local economic development group that was working on their comprehensive economic development strategy. So we are increasingly urging regions to think about working in partnership with their economic development district. I mean, keep them in the loop. But more importantly, a lot of these economic development districts are large, and as Rachel indicated, we're finding out that the large regions sometimes don't function as effectively. So what we try to do is say, that the rural counties many times whose unique needs are overlooked, this provides an opportunity for them to build a strong plan that complements or adds value to the broader economic development district plan. So it's not competitive, it's a complementary, a component that really, again, I think strengthens the overall economic development plan for that district if you happen to be looking at counties that may be part of another regional entity. So it's really could be a win-win situation if done in the right way. Hopefully that's helpful.
Bo, I have a question for you while you're on the phone. Who provides the data and technical assistance?
Okay, all the data with regard to the support for the Strong Economies Together is generated by the Purdue Center for Regional Development. So we will work whatever state is accepted in the set, and if they ultimately have one or two regions, we will work closely with the state resource team to make sure that we are receiving the requests in a timely fashion. And I think anybody who's on the call they have worked with Southern Rural Development Center, any of the other regional rural development centers, and now the Purdue Center for Regional Development in terms of data. We are really committed to turning that thing around as quickly as possible to respond to the needs that you have for data. So we provide the data, we walk you through it to help you understand it, but we also try, as you know, for those who've been part of SET, we are urging teams to have an individual who really understands some of the more in-depth kind of data, and therefore that person becomes the individual or individuals who provide that kind of on-the-ground technical assistance to the team when they try to really weigh through all the data and to understand what it all means.
Okay, we had a question about how many states we can take in this phase. We can take up to 18 states because we have funding for that. So I'll leave it at that. And then if you're already a set state for Phase 4, then or 3 or 2 or 1, you will need to apply for Phase 5 because it's a commitment of resources for another year. So with that, see, how much outreach have applicants done prior to the state application to gauge interest from regions? Is that necessary? Virginia, what was your experience?
Ask that question one more time, please.
Martha, yes. How much outreach did you do prior to the state application to gauge interest?
We did some. We contacted some of the, specifically, we contacted some of the elected officials that we've been working with in other projects to say, here's what's going on. Do you think you might be interested? We talked to some of the planning district directors that we knew to kind of gauge their interest. And so I think we had 5 different regions that applied in Set 3. And then I thought we had a good pool to kind of look at and wished we could have taken all of them. So, yes, we did have a conversation with people just to say, this is what we're thinking about. Do you think it might work? Are you willing to take a look at this with us? And even some of them who said they were willing did not apply, but a couple, one particular region that we had talked to said, yes, we'll apply, and they did, and they were accepted. And the other region was kind of a surprise, which was kind of fun.
Marilyn, do you want to talk about Nebraska's experience?
As far as Nebraska is concerned, we're kind of one of those outliers where we've got a big region, and it was really kind of built around our economic development district, but it also encompassed a strong network of not only economic development professionals, but people who work with the utilities and several other entities. They were meeting monthly and have been meeting monthly for several years. They call themselves the Northeast Nebraska Development Network, and so we really garnered support and talked about SET, this group, prior to applying for the Phase 4 state and then with the regional application. So we did, yeah, they want to know what they're getting themselves into. So I would definitely suggest that you talk with those people that might make really good participants on your state committee, your steering committee.
Rachel, I have two questions for you. One I just sent you, and one that's here. Let's see. How does the content of set 4 differ from earlier versions?
So I'll start with the content question. Can you go back to the slide that has the flow?
This one?
So just from this one, for those of you that have been in previous pieces, you probably will recognize these topics, but let me just tell you a few changes. The very first one, launching set through civic engagement, is going to be exactly kind of what it says. It's going to be more of a civic engagement forum that does a formal kickoff of the process. But during this time, some of the early look at data and interest and concerns and priorities for the region will be explored just on a very brief level, but at least to kind of begin to get that buy-in and begin to lay some of the foundation for the evidence for what needs to happen in the plan. Asset mapping, you may recognize, this is very similar to what it's been in the past. The goals and strategies, this is a combination of a couple of modules from the previous version, just bringing it down, streamlining it so that it's a little more to the point and action-oriented than it's been in the past. You can see that little jump out there to the right on tailored modules. This is where groups may go through the more in-depth cluster analysis. They may go through a specific module on the area they want to address, such as entrepreneurism or tourism or local foods. Those are some of the topics that we know will be there in that option for Taylor. But that is going to be an area where coaches will have a little bit of freedom to choose from the materials that are going to be available to them that will be more closely aligned to what that region's decided is important to them. And then the measurement is similar to the one that's been there before, but then this real important last piece there of implementation. Again, I'm just going to reinforce that we want some time spent there. We're developing some materials that will help the coaches to get those groups ready to launch on their own. And we think about it a whole lot like teaching a child to ride a bike. We're going to get the bike put together, that's the plan, but now we're going to teach the child to ride the bike, and so you hang on really tightly at first, but you gradually begin moving farther and farther away until the child's able to ride their bike on their own. So if you think about the planning process the same way, you're going to put the plan together, but you'll spend some more time after the plan's developed in helping this group really launch so that they are successful and able to sustain on their own. So I'm saying all of that, and that kind of gives a context for the second question, which is how much time we think extension people will put into this process. We have roughly 6 to 7 months, and this information is a little more detailed on the overview that you can, again, download from the website. But roughly 6 to 7 months for the planning process, and roughly 6 to 7 months on the implementation process. And we know this is going to vary by region, how much time is needed in those two phases. Most of our groups are meeting once a month, and each of these boxes, with the exception of the implementation, would be covered in one session. And most of those sessions are half-day sessions. So again, there's some flexibility. That's one of the things that we heard from the evaluation this year, is that flexibility is important to help tailor to the regions and meeting their needs. But if you think roughly 4 sessions of 4 hours apiece to get them through the planning process, and obviously there's some preparation time ahead of that so that you're ready to really lead and coach these sessions well. There's some reporting at the end of each of these sessions, so there's the back side of that, and keeping the groups connected in between meeting times. And then the implementation period, again, will be probably meeting about once a month with the groups, and again, that can vary some, but there'll be some specific tools and things that you'll use to help make sure that they're ready to go. Hopefully that answers your question a bit in just giving you some rough ideas on how this might look as far as commitments of time.
Rachel, if I can add, this is Bo, just another tidbit. I think that I'm not sure if I heard it yet. One of the things, as David said earlier, is we really are trying to be committed to making the meetings of the teams very hands-on and very action-oriented, which means more the content, more the the knowledge that they have to gain about their county or their region will be done in like an online format, or it could be if they don't have access to high-speed internet, we'll be using some other medium for helping communicate the content outside the so-called classroom, so that when they do come to the meeting, it's much more applying what they learned to keep moving on that high-quality regional plan. Okay, I'm trying to find them. You may have to repeat them because I can't find the questions on this link.
It's on the chat. Okay, can extension educators interweave other economic development programs with SET? Is there flexibility to extend the process to meet regions at different stages of readiness?
The answer now, probably all of us will probably want to chime in. We are, as was indicated earlier, trying to be much more flexible, not rigid on the SET program. So we do want to provide enough flexibility that if you have value-added activities that could be incorporated into SET because it makes sense, and that's what the regional team feels is needed, yes, we would encourage you to do that. And some of the optional modules we have are in a sense designed to maybe fill in some of those gaps if that were one of the content area they would like to go into, like entrepreneurship or business retention and expansion, whatever, or even on grant making. Can we provide advice on how to apply for and how to build a competitive grant application? So maybe Rachel will want to add something there.
Yeah, and I guess I will just tell the other side of the story. You know, the flexibility, as Bo said, is there and it's intentional. The other side of the story is that SET is a planning process for multiple county regions. So if you've got let's say a 3-county region that just finished a planning process next year, then realistically SET may not be the best choice for them. So if they are wanting to plan, they are wanting to work, and they're in the intent of SET, the purpose and process for SET is going to add value to where they are, that's great. But we certainly don't want to be duplicative. If they've already recently done planning, then this may not be the best thing for them.
Okay, Bo, another question. Do you review the criteria for selecting the SET regions within a state?
Would you say would I review them, you said?
Yeah, what is the selection criteria for a region?
There's clearly, well, first of all, we have certain requirements, and I think, Rachel, you may have talked about that, I think, about the the rural requirement. Did we talk about this?
Yes, we did.
Okay, so the first thing we do is, first of all, do they meet the requirements that it's primarily rural? 51% of the population base of that designated region is rural. The other thing is, of course, if they don't have the 51% population, they have to have, I think, 75% of the land that would be identified as rural. We will be glad, as we said before, to provide those data to you through the Purdue Center for Regional Development if you don't have access to those readily at hand. But the other thing we want to look at is what we've all been saying. Rachel said it earlier. Do you have a really strong state team that is diverse in terms of its constitution, not just regional planning groups, but do you have a variety of different agencies and organizations represented that really, that again, have that are really capable of evaluating? I mean, is that group really diverse, I guess, in its constitution? That's going to be one of the important things we look at in terms of a regional group. Do they have a really good mix of people? Have they really done a really good job expressing the value that SET brings to the table? So those will be the kinds of things but there are criteria in the SET application that clearly lays out how it will be evaluated. So this won't be behind the door that nobody knows what the criteria are. These will be very well expressed in the SET application about what we're looking for. Now, I'm not sure if anybody of our national team would like to add to that.
Actually, we have another question. It's kind of a twist on an earlier one. If a region already has an ED plan, and Dave's going to answer this, would it be possible to use SET support primarily to address regional planning and programming around a particular issue, such as some of the ones we mentioned?
Yeah, and our answer to that is we do not have any objection to a region that already has some ideas in terms of where they think they want to where they want to head. On the other hand, we do have an objection to a region that says we're going to focus on sector X, whether that sector be agriculture or, you know, manufacturing of widgets or whatever it might be. We want them to come into SET because part of SET is looking at what their situation is, what their assets are, what their economic situation is now, opportunities, et cetera, and we want them to truly value going through that process. So if they've already made up their mind that they're going to be working in a particular area, SET is not the vehicle for them.
And if they already have an ED plan, then they probably do not want to go through SET because that is economic development planning. We also had a question about how many, you know, can a state only do one region? And the answer, I think, depends. Bo, do you want to answer that one?
Yeah, I think in general, we have learned a lot of lessons over the years, and one of them is that if you go beyond 2 regions, it's almost impossible to be able to really do an adequate job, particularly in terms of the support that is needed to work with these regional teams. So though we don't have any hard, fast rules, I think the typical standard response, the one I think we will try to subscribe to pretty much, is at max 2 regions per state would be considered. So for those of you who are going to be involved in helping marshal up the interest and get more than 2 regions who apply, that will be part of your responsibilities as a state resource team, is to evaluate those and to make a recommendation to USDA Rural Development in priority order as to which regions you would recommend be supported for the SET program in your state. So it's really typically 2 at most is likely to be the response to that question.
Okay, we're going to wrap this up. I had one last question. Could a region cross state lines? Most definitely. We've had several, and they've worked pretty well. And so if there are any further questions, please email any of us that are on this last slide. Oops. And on the materials on the website. Like I said, this link will be posted on the website as well as the PowerPoint. Rachel or Bo, do you have any last comments?
I just want to thank everybody for joining, and we're looking forward to a conversation as we move forward.
Same here. Thank you for joining us. I'm impressed by the number of people we had on the webinar, so thank you. And as Rachel and as Suzette said, please let us know if we can respond to any additional questions you may have.
This is Dave Sears, RD National Office, and I just want to say, wow, this is exciting. Phase 5 SET is going to be even more wonderful than it's been to date, and encourage all of you to think really hard about whether you want to apply. I think it's a wonderful, wonderful opportunity and a way for you to engage 1 or 2 of your regions and get them moving forward in 2015. So exciting times, and let's move it forward.
And this is Suzette Agins. I appreciate the time you gave to listen to this today, and I look forward to working with some of you, or maybe all of you, in the future. Have a good day. Bye.
Thank you.
Your host is exiting the conference. This conference will continue for 15 minutes.